Hey, so welcome to today's video. As you can see by the title and the screen, we are going to be using TierMaker today for our video. I wanted to rank all of the memoirs that I've ever read because it is a lot and the list just keeps going. I'm currently like 90% of the way through a memoir that is not included here, so I feel like there's potential for this to be done again, but we're just going to start with the books that I've read. This is a list of, I think it's like 30 or so. No, this is definitely not 30, but this is the list of some of the memoirs I've read, and I have, obviously, some custom tiers for us. I'm going to go through those. She's the Mother I Never Had.
She is the mother I never had.
Pretty much when I go into a memoir, I would like this book to mother me. I love my mom, and she's mothered me in great ways. But there are, I'm looking for these books to teach me about life and how to live my life. And that's why they're the Mother I Never Had, the best books. Then we go Slay What You Want to Slay.
Slay what you want to slay and let the slay flow.
This is like a category for books that I really enjoyed and enjoyed what they said, but they weren't like life-changing, mothering me kind of thing. But they slayed, so they're slaying what they want to slay. And then we go into Grape.
Yeah, he's a pilot. Great.
Yeah, they're just great, good, fine, not great, but good. But kind of better than good. They go in the mid-tier here. This is probably a catch-all for books that I don't have strong feelings for. Then we get to Anyway So.
Big boobs. What? Child. Anyway, so.
These are books that I read and then went, okay, cool. All right, like, good for you for writing it, but bad for me, And then our last category is High Flop.
Hey, bitch. Hey, flop.
I don't know if I'm actually going to put any books in here because I wouldn't consider any of these books flops, but I left it there because you never know what's going to come out in the sorting. So we're just going to get started. This first book, The Third Gilmore Girl by, I almost said Emily Gilmore, Kelly Bishop. Honestly, she kind of mothered in a mothering way. Like, it's not my favorite memoir I've ever read, but in terms of mothering, she did accomplish that. So this book was really interesting. Like, it talks about her experience on Broadway, just beyond Gilmore Girls, and like her experience growing up and just kind of being a really fun lady who like I would like to spend time with. So yeah, I think she belongs in that tier. Oh no. The Woman in Me by Britney Spears. I'm kind of between Grape and Anyway So because like it was fine. It wasn't anything like, it wasn't slay. I'm going to stay in Grape because I know this was a lot for it to come out, but I feel like there was a lot missing from this memoir. There was little moments that like stick out in my mind when she's talking about how much she loved Blackout, which of course we all love Blackout. When she's talking about like her childhood, I found those the most interesting. And then there's some of the parts of the book that feel very held back. So for that reason, it's Grape or Anyway So. I might come back to that. The Office BFFs. I'm sorry, this was fun, but it wasn't really giving me like anything crazy. Like, I think you probably could have listened to their podcast and got the same thing, which I don't necessarily love in an audiobook memoir. Like, if you already have a podcast, I feel like your memoir kind of needs to go a step above, and I didn't really feel like this book necessarily did that. But it was fun because they're very cute and their friendship is very cute, and I'm a fan of The Office. So obviously Mother. I mean, like, we have to thank Jeanette McCurdy for pretty much every book on this list. Like, who is doing memoirs like her? No one. I'm Glad My Mom Died is Jeanette McCurdy's memoir that came out in like 2022 and took the world by storm. It was so unique and really made me buy into memoirs as, a unique form of storytelling, different than fiction, and that they could kind of tell stories in a completely different way. I guess I kind of saw memoirs as more of like an airing of grievances and like gossip, but I think that I'm Glad My Mom Died really brought an artistic side to memoirs for me that I had never read before. And I still don't know if I've read a memoir that was better than I'm Sorry My Mom Died. If you haven't read it, I feel like everyone has. You should, if you haven't, because it's great. And I love the audiobook and the physical book. I read both versions and they're both really good. Okay, sure, I'll join your cult. I'm sorry, but it's also Mother. I'm sorry. This is by Maria Bamford. She's an alternative comedian. She had a show on Netflix. This was so funny. This is one of the funniest memoirs I've ever read. It's about her experience joining several cult-like groups. So it ranges from like religion to, I think, Weight Watchers, and then AA, and like some kind of MLM she joins with her dad. It's really funny. It's such a smart way to position your memoir. I don't think it got a lot of attention, but it was so funny and genuinely very interesting to read, because she has a mind that's, you know, one of one. No one else thinks the thoughts that she has, and no one else has lived the life that she has. So it was kind of a good combo of funny, a unique life to read about, and just like crazy. We love that. Next we have Over the Influence by JoJo, and I think I'm going to put that in grape. This one took me forever to get through, and I don't know why. JoJo is a singer. She's been around since she was 13, like with #1 hits, which is a very unique position to be in. And then her career kind of like stalled. But you read in this book why that happened. She had a lot of industry interference, and just a lot of bad things happening in her life. She had a hard life. Both of her parents had addiction issues. So it tells a unique story. And it's interesting to get that perspective on the recording industry. We don't really see that a ton. Some of these books touch on it, like Britney's kind of does, but I feel like JoJo's is very much about the music industry. But yeah, I don't know, it just didn't really stand out to me, so I'm going to put it in grape. It was good. It was grape. My Body by Emily Ratajkowski. I feel bad putting it in any way so, but I just don't really think about this much at all, and I know people loved it. They were like, oh my gosh, it's like this new feminist book in the canon, but I just didn't really connect to it. I think that Emily Ratajkowski and I have had very different experiences in life. So I just didn't connect with a lot of the things that she said. For a lot of these are all celebrity memoirs. They all have very different lives than what I have, but and sometimes I feel like I can connect to some more than others, and I didn't necessarily connect to this one, but I'm definitely interested in reading more from her. I think it was surprising for a lot of people that she was as intellectual that she is, and that, you know, this book was kind of what it was. It was like more of a feminist book than just like this is my life, I like this thing. So for that, I applaud that she took a unique perspective on this, and it's kind of more of essays on feminism, but I didn't personally connect to it when I read it. Have I told you this already? I'm sorry. It's Going and She's the Mother I Never Had. I loved this book so much. It got me on a kick of memoirs starting like summertime into the end of the year that I'm still recovering from. This book is so good. It's Lauren Graham's second memoir, so it's not particularly about Gilmore Girls. It's just more about her life. And she has such a funny voice and perspective on the world that I think comes through in this book more than the other memoir, which we'll talk about because it's in this list. But I am like ready and sat for whatever she writes next. And then we have Master of Me by Keke Palmer. Love Keke Palmer, first of all. Love Keke Palmer. She is so funny. There is no person in the world that's more charismatic than Keke Palmer. This book, though, it was fine. So it's going in grape. I found sometimes it was a bit too self-helpy. And I can understand why that is, because the position of the book is like, I'm the master of me, this is how you can be like me, and kind of selling the Keke Palmer personality to others to kind of be able to adapt to themselves. Keke is very well known for like always working, doing a lot of stuff for herself. So she kind of tries to share that through this book, which I think she definitely accomplishes. But I think the parts that I enjoyed the most were when she was talking about her life, her son, her family. There was some gossipy parts that had happened in her life recently, and I think she handled those really well, knowing that, you know, the person in the story is her son's dad. I think she did a really good job of navigating the more tabloidy fodder stories without disrespecting the people in the story, but still being able to share her true experience. She has another memoir from earlier in her life, so I'm assuming that has more of the memoir side of things, but I think she was like 15, so not necessarily the age of memoirs that I usually read, but I still liked it. The audiobook is good because Keke Palmer is narrating, and I love her, so yeah, it was good. I think potentially her podcast would be a better avenue to learn more about Keke, or just a good supplemental kind of thing. I kind of want to move this up to Slay What You Want to Slay. I think I might, for now. I love Keke Palmer. Okay, so Crying in H Mart. She's a mother I never had. Where did she go? Oh, no. No. She's the mother I never had. Let's be honest. Let's be truthful. Crying in H Mart was potentially the best book I read last year. I think it was. I rated it a 4.75. It's so cutting and has a way of being economical with its words and the way that the story is told that makes it more cutting. It's kind of like how I feel about Beartown. It's not very fancy, like hoity-toity writing. It just kind of cuts right to the point and it makes it much more impactful. I cried so much with this book and I really enjoyed this new perspective of relationship through the lens of food. It's something that I've noticed in my life as well. The motherhood relationship and the food kind of crossover of that. And I think that's true for a lot of people. So I think that she navigated that story really, really well. And again, I would love to see her come back in 10 years and kind of have more stories to tell, kind of like a Lauren Graham. Like I would love for her to continue writing. Paris, a memoir. Slay What You Want to Slay. Like, who else is going to get Slay Who You Want to Slay? Like, oh my gosh. This book I loved it. I really enjoyed getting to see a new perspective on Paris Hilton. I had kept up with interviews that she'd done about her experiences in the wilderness camps that she went to, like pretty much the child prisons that she went to. So that part of the story is harrowing and really builds a perspective on Paris Hilton, the figure that we never really considered. I grew up in the 2000s and remember like how hated she was for just like being a woman and like, I don't know, just living her life, sliving, if you will. There's some parts of this book that I don't love. The NFT stuff has not aged well, but she was real big in the NFTs, so like not shocking. But I really enjoyed this book, and it was one of the books I've read from like a female celebrity that really put a whole different perspective on them, and something that I would recommend for girls who grew up in the 2000s. The next book is Loud by Drew F. Wallow. I want to say it's between Grape and Anyway So. I think I'm going to put it there for now. This book was great for, and I don't, this is gonna sound so condescending, for like a content creator book. I've read multiple content books, like the influencer books, the YouTuber books. This was definitely the best of all of those. Again, similar to Kiki's book, the parts I didn't like about it were the parts that were more self-helpy. And I know this book is kind of more self-helpy than it is memoir because she's younger. I think that was kind of how people wanted to sell the book, as like, okay, you can become like Drew F. Wallow, you can have her personality, you can be like no nonsense kind of thing. Very similar to Kiki. And she does the audiobook really well. She's very charismatic. There's just something missing from this book for me. I think it was well written, and there's definitely people who can benefit from this. And there's a lot of people who need to hear these messages that Drew has, and I think she's so funny. But this book didn't necessarily connect to me, and the lessons weren't like speaking to me in particular, I think. Okay, I'm gonna feel really bad when I do this. I didn't hate this book. Everybody hated Beyond the Wand by Tom Felton. I enjoyed it. Like, I cannot get rid of my love for Harry Potter. I have tried. You know, it's not an ethical love anymore. It's rough. But I love Harry Potter, and hearing the behind the scenes stuff is interesting. There were parts of this book that made me physically cringe. Like whenever he says Gryffindor, I want to die. It was bad. It was bad. But I just think that I am so ready for the Harry Potter memoir collection that we're going to be getting in the next 40 plus years, because I love it so much and I cannot stop, as I've said. Actually, I think I might move this into Anyway So, because of those cringy moments I'm thinking about again. There are some very interesting points in the story here. He has issues with addiction post-Potter that I think were really interesting, and they weren't a huge part of the story. His kind of acting career. Like, a lot of these people and their stories, they're very successful actors. He had a very successful child actor career, and then he talks about how that's kind of gone. Like, he's not really a famous actor anymore. He's famously in Harry Potter. So I think that perspective is very cool, because we don't really get a lot of memoirs from people who like aren't at the top of their game or like a retired icon. So it was unique to see that. You know what? I'm going to put it here and we're going to come back to that, because I don't know how I feel. I'm about to be really controversial. First of all, rest in peace. Second of all, I did not love this book. I found it very bitter. The audiobook was sad because he's, before his death, had dealt with so many medical issues that he didn't sound the same, and it was kind of sad and put like a sad perspective on the book for me. And when he's talking about addiction and you can hear him like how his health has impacted him, it kind of just made everything sadder. This came from a very pessimistic point, but then you can kind of understand why. He passed away not long after this book came out, and it kind of gave it a second wind. But this is Friends, Lovers, and the Great Big Terrible Thing by Matthew Perry, the Matthew Perry book. Yeah, there's a lot of weird things in this book, like just weird, like kind of like older man negativity things that I didn't really love. And I feel really bad saying all this. I'm saying this from a rest in peace king perspective. Love Friends, love Chandler. I love that he has had such a lasting impact on the world, and that we'll be able to come back to his show forever and still be comforted and laugh with him. Like, I think that's so amazing for his legacy. This book just was not the one for me, unfortunately. But in retrospect, very interesting to have someone have written a story so close to their death about their life, which is something that happens later on as well. Greenlight. Ooh, are we gonna have our first flop? Oh my god, we have our first flop. Oh my god. So I read this book because back when I listened to Armchair Expert, Matthew McConaughey came on the podcast and did promo. He told all the best stories from this book in the promo, which was kind of silly. Like, there's some really fun stories in here, but I think it's better served by just reading or just listening to the Armchair Expert episode, because he tells all the best stories and cuts out kind of all the filler. Matthew McConaughey is kind of an anomaly of a human being. He's a conservative Texan who's very hippy dippy. He talks about being naked all the time. Good for him. It's just like not the book for me. I think potentially my memoir, I think we can see where my memoir loves lie. It's in funny. It's in like, honestly, women, like, I don't know. I'm sure there's some men written memoirs that I would connect with, but so far, not many. I'm sorry to Matthew McConaughey. This book wasn't even that bad. I listened to the audiobook and he just kept saying green light. And I was like, I don't care. Please leave me alone. But I love The Wedding Planner. Yeah. Okay. Love Pamela by Pamela Anderson. I want to say Slay What You Want to Slay. It's kind of between Grape and Slay What You Want to Slay. But I think about this a lot. And with the kind of Pamela renaissance that we are currently in, I still think about it. And I think about the world that she built. She's also a Canadian. We love to support Canadian authors. So that's part of it. Pamela Anderson was like a larger than life figure growing up in the 2000s. Very similar to Paris. Like, not even a real human being. So hearing her story was amazing. I'd never really learned anything about her other than like when I was cognizant of the world, she was already kind of like a joke. And that sounds horrible, but her position in like the pop culture was kind of a joke. Like, I remember her was she in Austin Powers, and was she also in Scooby-Doo? Those are two questions I have. But this is, again, Pamela is an enigma. She thinks things that are very weird, but we love her for that, and I want to see her movie. Love Pamela is like very similar to Paris and the Britney one, where we're getting perspective on this person who's been larger than life for decades, and we don't really know a ton about their personal life. Like I don't. But I found that she was just so whimsical, and her sweetness comes through so much. And I just wanted to like protect her, even though she's my parents' age. I just wanted to like protect her and hold her. And she was so vulnerable and just like an open wound that I felt came through really well in this book. And that's hard to do without being insincere. So I thought for that reason, it's going to be in Slay What You Want to Slay. Nora Ephron. Nora Ephron's honestly the mother that I have. Well, I grew up watching Nora Ephron movies with my mom. We've watched You've Got Mail innumerable times. Love that movie so much. Nora Ephron has shaped my humor. So, I mean, I was so happy to be able to like read her book this year and see what she had to say about womanhood in, I think when she was in her 60s. I tried to get my mom to read this, but she wouldn't. I'm very interested in reading books from women who are my mom's age so that I can better know her perspective and better know what my perspective is going to be in however many years. I'm not revealing my mother's age. My mom's not in her 60s, by the way. Just wanted to say that. Nora Ephron is the blueprint for these girlies. Nora Ephron is a blueprint for Lauren Graham, cites her as her blueprint. Carrie Fisher, like a lot of these women whose books I loved all kind of pray at the altar of Nora Ephron, and I think we all should. Love her. She's so funny. She's so precise. Yeah. Okay, so then we have the second Lauren Graham memoir, which is Talking as Fast as I Can. I'm going to put this in grape because I think it was almost too Gilmore Girls-y. When I'm reading a memoir, I like for the thing that they're famous for to be between 40 to 30% of the book. I felt that Gilmore was like too much of this book. And as much as I love Gilmore Girls, did not love the Year in the Life. I don't think really many people did. So hearing an in-depth recap of everything that happened in A Year in the Life was not something that I was really interested in. It probably would have hit me more if I had if I'd read it right when it came out. But yeah, didn't like it. It was reminding me of how much I hated that television series, which was not what I wanted. But overall, Lauren Graham's still a great writer. Like, you still get that through this. I just think that the content in Have I Told You This Already is stronger and is more of a unique perspective than just kind of recapping the show. So, for that reason, it's going to go in grape. Page Boy. I'm sorry. I mean this in a respectful way. I'm sorry, Elliot Page. I thought that, first of all, the cover and the name are great. Love. However, I did not really... this book was kind of a little boring, honestly. The most interesting part of this book to me was hearing about how Elliot grew up in Nova Scotia and hearing his experience there and like talking about going to hockey rinks and Tim Hortons. That was my favorite part. Loved that. And then I feel like most of this was just therapy. I also just listened to Jack Edwards' review, and he helped me kind of see what I didn't love about this book. It was a lot of like thinking and not a lot of telling of my life, which isn't how I like my memoirs, but I'm sure that there are people out there who prefer that, like kind of more of a thinky, you know? I don't know what I'm trying to say. Like reminiscing on things instead of actually telling the story of the things that happened, which is how I write my journals. So maybe that's like a self-read, but I just didn't love this book. So I put it in anyway. So I would be interested in hearing Elliot Page's memoir in 20 years and having him come back and look at his life again. I think that would be very interesting. Yeah. Wishful Drinking by Carrie Fisher. Loved. Again, love hearing about a woman tell the stories of her life. Carrie Fisher has had a life that literally no one else has ever had. Her mom was a part of one of the biggest celebrity scandals of all time. Her father cheating on her with her best friend, Elizabeth Taylor. Heard of her? Yeah. And then like being in Star Wars. That's crazy. And then having the after career that she had. Wild. This is her first memoir. I have The Princess Diarist. to still read, which I think goes over a bit more of Star Wars stuff. This doesn't really talk about Star Wars. It mostly talks about her relationship with her mother, which we love. A theme I love in books is women talking about their relationship with their mothers. So yeah, just loved it. It was so funny. Loved it. So our next book is From Here to the Great Unknown by Lisa Marie Presley and Riley Keough. I'm put that in Slay What You Want to Slay. I think if this book had just been Lisa Marie Presley talking about her life, I wouldn't have liked it as much as I do. Riley Keough's perspective was so illuminating. Like, Lisa Marie Presley, when she wrote this book, was going through in the depths of her addiction and was very pessimistic. And that's not a read. That's just kind of the view that came through to me. Very similar to the Matthew Perry one. Riley Keough's part was like, it was like a bright, not that every memoir has to be happy, but I just found that the way she talked about things was a bit more wholesome, and not wholesome like that, but like holistic. Like, it took in variety of perspectives instead of just like Lisa Marie's one perspective, which I guess a memoir is from one person's perspective, but I like the ones that are able to kind of go outside the self and look at other people and acknowledge their context and position. So I think, again, if this had just been Lisa Marie Presley, I wouldn't have loved it, but Riley Keough's voice in this is so needed, and I think this way of writing a book obviously came from a horrible, tragic place where Lisa Marie Presley died before she was able to finish the book, and she'd asked her daughter Riley to help her with it, and then she passed away not soon after. So Riley had kind of taken all of the notes that her mother had written over the past few years in the recordings and helped write this book. Obviously, this came out of a horrible, tragic place, but I think as a mode of memoir writing is potentially better than just one person. So for that, I really liked the formatting was so unique. I listened to the audiobook. Julia Roberts was the audio narrator for Lisa Marie. Riley Keough killed it as another audiobook memoir narrator person. But yeah, loved this. Loved it. It was so good. Another person who's lived such a unique life, Down the Drain by Julia Fox, is going to go in She's the Mother I Never Had. This book is so crazy. It's off the wall wild. Julia Fox has lived 1,000 lifetimes in her young, beautiful life, and she tells all about it in this book. And we have to say thank you, Julia. I'm so Julia. I mean, I'm not. I'm literally the opposite of Julia Fox. I'm sitting in my office in a basement, telling you about books I've read, and Julia Fox is probably doing something really wild right now, and I am not. Julia Fox is similar to like a Paris Pamela, like Brittany. We don't know her personally that well. She kind of came to a lot of our eyes from dating Kanye and Righteous Gemstone, not Righteous, whatever the Gem movie is that she was in. That's kind of how we came to know her. And then since then, she's kind of been a woman about town. And you know what? We need more women about town. In this day and age, we can't just have influencers. We need women to be doing things. Julia Fox's memoir is very honest and does not hold back. You hear some wild stuff that she's done in her life. And if you're looking for a wild ride, this is the one for you. I feel like I might move it down because I didn't really learn much from my life, which is kind of how She's the Mother I Never Had is kind of that category. I didn't really learn things to apply to my life, but I had a great time reading this book. Counting the Cost. I just read this, so I don't have a lot of firm thoughts on it. I'm going to say grape. I'm caught between grape or Anyway So. This is Jill Duggar, who was on 19 Kids and Counting, and she's talking about her experience growing up in the Duggar family, her experience with the religion that they all participated in, and then her experience on the show, and then getting out of the family and the show. This is another person that I would like to see a follow-up from in years to come, because I think she's still got a lot of things. Like, she's still really young. She's got like kids and a husband and all that, and she's still really young. So I'd like to see her in a few years kind of look back on this again. She's had a lot of traumatic stuff happen that, she, you know, because her family was in the limelight, something that she had no control over. She didn't have any ability to hide from those things. Like, she wasn't able to kind of heal because of the way that she grew up. And this book seemed very healing to me. And I really enjoy that in a memoir, when someone can take those experiences and examine them. And it helps not only the people that are reading it, but the people, you know, the person who's writing it. This also has put me on a trajectory of reading books about people leaving religious kind of cults. So yeah, we love a new trajectory for a new year. Last year it was girlhood, motherhood, and being a woman in the eye and revealing who you actually are. And this year I think it's religious trauma. So that's cool and chill and probably fine. Yeah. Okay, so our next book is Finding Me by Viola Davis. This book is really sad. A lot of sad things happened to Viola Davis before she made it famous. I want to say it's slay what you want to slay. What a crew of women we've got here. I really liked this book. The voice acting was really, really well done. It's Viola Davis, obviously. She's a wonderful actor. I just don't think about this book a ton after having read it, so I can't put it in She's the Mother I Never Had. Viola Davis has had a hard life leading up to where she's at, and she had to fight tooth and nail for like everything she got. So it was a very inspiring story from her being able to make it out of the place that she was born in and kind of take opportunities where they popped up and work super hard for everything that she has. So very inspiring. And she slayed. So I feel like the category is right. Okay, Mink Kelly, Tell Me. I feel like it's either Anyway So or Grape. I'm gonna say Anyway So because I don't really think about this book too often. Minka Kelly, didn't know really anything about her. I did not watch Friday Night Lights. I just knew of her as like a famous, very pretty woman. And I learned a lot about her because I knew nothing. She had a very street life. She was a little crazy. And I feel like the way that she carries herself does not reflect the life that she's had. Very similar to Pamela Anderson. Like, she's very, like, not delicate, but she feels very vulnerable. A big portion of this book is how ketamine treatments helped her kind of get over some trauma, which is, not something I've read in these other books. Very different. But again, I don't think about it that much. I liked it. So it's kind of in between Grape and Anyway So, but we're going to leave it in Anyway So for now. Okay. Last book. Strong Female Character by Fern Brady is going in She's the Mother I Never Had. This was the funniest memoir I read last year. It was so good. Fern Brady is a Scottish comedian. I know her, I think I saw a bunch of stand-up clips from her and watched her specials. She's so funny. I love her. She talks about her experience getting a late-in-life diagnosis of autism, and most of the book is exploring how autism has kind of impacted her life growing up and, like, not knowing why she was doing the things that she was doing and, like, how it's impacted her life. It's led her to a lot of wild situations, which she goes through in detail in this book. And it's just kind of a wild ride. Like, she does some, like, I don't want to say crazy because that's rude. But I mean, she has done some very non-traditional things and she's very funny. And I think this book is a mother. Okay. If we're going through the She's the Mother I Never Had category, number 1 is going to be I'm Glad My Mom Died. And then probably Crying in H Mart. And then I would say this. Why won't you go there? And then probably Lauren Graham. And then I would say her. I would say that's pretty accurate. But I would recommend any of these. I'd recommend anything from Slay What You Want to Slay, She's the Mother I Never Had, Grape. Take with a grain of salt, depending on what you're interested in. If you have a low level for cringe tolerance, don't read Beyond the Wand by Tom Felton. Anyway, so I think they're still interesting to read if that's a topic or a person that interests you. And Green Lights, I think, is only meant for men. So, yeah. Thank you so much for watching. Welcome to the office. This is a new filming location. I hope this filming went well. I've never used OBS before, so I'm hoping this went well. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. I will keep you all updated on more memoirs that I read. I'm almost done another one, so that will be coming soon. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you like this video, and I will see you in the next one. Have a great rest of your day. Bye!